Hi, I'm Mary Harrell for Tan Books, and people are always asking me, moms, grandmas, what's a great gift I can give a Catholic child? What's a great book I can give to a Catholic family? And there are lots of options at Tan, of course, but one new release really stands out. Eucharistic Saints 20 Stories of Devotions to Jesus is a labor of love from author Meredith Hinds. And Meredith is here today to talk about her great project. Meredith, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Mary. I'm really glad to be here.
Meredith, tell us about the inspiration for this book. What was it that sparked your imagination to talk about saints with this devotion to our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament?
So my children and I do a children's holy hour at a nearby parish, there's a Blessed Sacrament chapel, and there is a certain time that families can come in with their children. And we've been doing this for a couple of years, and something that we love doing during this time, because we don't have it be a silent holy hour. It's more of a loud holy hour, but anybody is welcome to come and be there. And something that we love during this time is reading stories. And so I was kind of thinking about something that could be used in, any time that there is a parent reading to their child or another loved one reading to a child about the faith, but particularly in that context was, inspiring to me. And it's fun to see the cover of the book, which has the monstrance on it, which is, of course, what we go and we see during those children's holy hour times. And also this year, my son is taking First Communion. So that was inspiring as well, as I'm kind of going on this journey with him as he prepares to take the sacrament for the first time.
Sacrament season is always the best season. I love the confirmations, the First Communions, a lot of grace just flowing all around in our churches right now in the spring.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful for our communities and just to enjoy that together, those graces, just like you said.
Meredith, you talk about the book is a collection of stories of devotion to Jesus. You're not writing histories. You weren't writing your version on saint biographies. These are stories. Tell us about the difference and why that was important to you.
I really love writing scenes, almost is what these are. So yeah, families shouldn't expect a biographical take on anybody, which I think it's helpful that many of these saints are very well known already. So in a lot of cases, if a family doesn't know who they are, it's very easy to find out information about who they are. But then to bring to the forefront one really meaningful scene from the saint's life that kind of shows the saint interacting with the Eucharist in the way that a child can see that. And I think that children learn a lot from stories. I think that we love telling them stories about our own families. Like you love telling them stories about their aunts or their uncles or their grandparents or any of those people. And I think that they have a similar reaction to you telling them stories about the saints that are really important to you. It's a way for the children to get to know that saint is through those stories.
Absolutely. And I mean, Meredith, you could say probably every single saint who's ever been canonized by the church has some sort of devotion to our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. But you chose to narrow down this list and focus on ones that had very interesting stories to tell about their love. How did you narrow down that list?
Well, the team at TAN helped a lot with that. And so we wanted to offer a range of experiences, though, which is why we have several who are children. We wanted to offer a mix between male saints and female saints and saints who are older, just to kind of show that devotion to the Eucharist is really not confined to any one type of vocation or any one type of age or experience. And so that was, it was kind of a funny task, though, because all of the saints love the Eucharist. So, and even to say that these 20 loved the Eucharist more than the others, that's just, at some point we just had to pick 20 and go with those 20. And I think that we came up with a really good collection, and I hope that people really enjoy it. But I'm sure, and as I've already been interacting with some other authors as they've looked at this, every time, and friends also, they've said, but what about, and then they come up with another saint who, they're like, this is the person who really shows us what Eucharistic devotion is. So it just goes to show that during this time of revival, we really can look to all of our all of our patrons, all of our favorite saints, and kind of do some digging and be like, what were they like with the Eucharist? Is there something that they said about the Eucharist that's really significant? So it's really meant to be a springboard to go look at other saints as well.
Everybody's a critic, everybody. You write the book next time. Okay, fine.
Oh man. Yeah. And like, I welcome that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's really good for us to kind of have a dialogue about those kinds of things. But yeah. So yeah, it's wonderful though. It's wonderful that everyone can think of a saint who, should be on this list. I think that's
all right. So in your list, who
Yes.
were the favorites? Who were your own favorites to write these stories of, to come up with these little vignettes, these little scenes? And who are your kids' favorites? Because I'm sure your kids were looking at this. I'm sure your kids are your biggest critics, right? Mom,
Oh man.
gotta do it this way.
Yeah, I do some other writing also about stories about our family sometimes as well. And it's always fun to see what the kids say. But for these ones, my children really liked the story of Saint Tarcisius, which is interesting because as a lot of people know, that's a pretty rough story. In the end, he's a martyr. He dies defending the Eucharist, but they loved that. They loved the intensity of the story. And so and they also, none of my children are doing altar serving or anything like that yet, but they love watching the altar servers during Mass. And so to have this story about St. Tarcisius, who's a patron of altar servers, they really connected with that and thought that was really cool. And one of mine too, one of my favorite saints. Okay. One of my favorite ones, also another one of the younger ones to connect with, was Blessed Carlo Acutis. I hadn't really engaged with him before, but I do a lot of work on a computer, and I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. And Blessed Carlo just had this, unfailingly positive attitude about the good that the internet could do. And that was really instructive for me because he died when he was much younger than I am right now. But I just, saw this joy that he had. I saw he had this refusal to be a pessimist in some of these things and to really use what he found on the internet to bring life and joy and more knowledge about the Eucharist to people. So at some point, I got a picture of Blessed Carlo and I put it on one of my monitors and I was like, here, I'm going to have Blessed Carlo with me now when I'm doing my work.
That's so great.
Because he wanted to glorify Jesus in everything that he did. And so I know that I need his intercession. So he became one of my favorites.
Who were some of the obvious ones that you thought, well, duh, I have to include blank? Is that Thomas Aquinas? Who's an obvious one?
Thomas Aquinas was pretty obvious because he did so much writing about the Eucharist, that was really cool to get into some of that for myself and just to be grateful. Like, wow, we have what we need to understand what this is. He is a great teacher for us now as we're thinking about the Eucharist. Like, what really is this? Or why is it that the Eucharist still appears to be like bread and wine? Like, how do we know that it has changed? And I found that what Thomas Aquinas wrote was really helpful. And even for those of us who kind of already know those things, to just see it articulated by somebody who is so, just so incredible. And one of the doctors of the church, of course. St. Catherine of Siena was also kind of no-brainer to be in there. Wanted to talk about at least one person who had the stigmata. Padre Pio is in there as well. So we wanted to talk about what that experience is and kind of what we can learn from that as well. So they seemed like pretty obvious choices. And Pope John Paul II also spread a lot of devotion to the Eucharist. And he is a more recent saint as well, like Padre Pio. So, and I was hoping that some of these stories would give parents and godparents and grandparents the chance to tell children something about this saint that has been really significant to them, And I mean, now I'm just kind of like conjecturing, but maybe one of the parents who's reading this book to their children has been to was at one of the World Youth Days that he was there, and they can tell the child about that too. So hopefully it offers a lot of good connection points with children along the way.
My husband was on stage with JP2 in Denver, I think, at
Oh,
that World Youth Day.
wow.
Yeah, so yeah, my kids love to hear that story. It
Yeah.
doesn't get old when you're in the proximity of a saint like that. You're totally, gosh,
Mhm.
what generation are we of that? That we're at a World Youth Day with JP2? We're not millennials, we're something else. I forget. Whatever. We're old. We're old.
I think you're the
Yeah.
one before. I'm a millennial. All the things fit. All the
All of
descriptions.
them. That's right.
Yeah. No, I'm like, oh yes, that one's me. So-
Yeah. Meredith, last question for you. What do you hope families gain by having this book in their homes and sharing it with their children, their little ones, their older ones that are just making their sacraments of initiation, ones that are on the older side? What do you think they have to gain by having this?
I think that these stories really do show us how Jesus is with us in the Eucharist. And I would love if more, if families were just consoled by that thought, even a couple times while looking through this this little collection of stories, because what we have is the gift of the Eucharist, and that's available to so many of us, every day, even, that we can, reach out and be in the presence of that particular grace. So I would love if this book helped parents be the ones also to teach their children that Jesus really truly is with us in the Eucharist. And for, a child, maybe not even to understand that fully right then, but to hear their parents say that, I think is, that's just an incredible thing. So that would be my greatest hope for something like this.
We have an embarrassment of riches, don't
Yes,
we?
we do.
And passing down.
Yeah.
And yet we can't let us close without talking about Adelie Hude's
Oh,
illustrations.
yeah.
My gosh, the illustrations, and they're simply to die for. They are so beautiful. Again, the book is Eucharistic Saints, 20 Stories of Devotion to Jesus. You can find it right here at tanbooks.com or ask for it at your local Catholic bookstore. Meredith, congrats on this great book. God bless you and your family, and thanks for being here with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mary.